What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Hangover. We are your Steel Curtain Network hosts. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon White. Steelers just beat the Packers yesterday in a familiar fashion, down to the wire. Shannon, how was the game for you yesterday? Did you watch it? Where'd you catch it at?
Yeah, I watched it at home with the fam. Uh, when we were talking about titles, I said deja vu, rinse and repeat. This is a carbon copy of the second half of last year.
Yeah.
Try to have the offensive line gel, and start playing better at the same time, and the running game take off. Play conservative offense. Don't beat yourself, and find a way to win at the end. When your big time players make money plays, and so we've seen this before, and we was hoping for something a little more exciting this year and a little more relaxing at the end of these games, but it ain't happened yet.
No, not yet. In fact, I think the Steelers have had one. I think it's like 9 consecutive one score wins.
Yeah,
That's insane. That's insane. But it's keeping us young. It's keeping us on our toes.
Maybe you was aging me.
Yesterday, during the game, the first half of the game, obviously I felt like the team was going in the right direction. Yeah. Broderick Jones, I'm just like, man, they should have moved him up sooner. The guy executes. When I looked at the All-22 and I looked at Broderick Jones specifically, one thing that he does that's better than probably any of the linemen that we have is he's singularly focused on his block, and then he moves up to the next spot.
Yep.
Sometimes the other linemen will turn around and watch the play instead of looking for somebody second to go up against. And because he knows where he's going to go and he attacks that spot, there's a lot less missed blocks, which is allowing these running backs to just go crazy. Matt LaFleur had stated after the game that they anticipated the Steelers to run the ball and run it often and in the area and how they anticipated to run it. However, they just couldn't stop it. And that's what I like to hear. That's the kind of stuff I want to hear. That's bully ball. That's what we've been missing. What are your thoughts on Broderick Jones, and where do you think he can, where's he going? Where's his ceiling at?
Oh, his ceiling's Pro Bowl minimum, maybe all pro. Incredibly athletic. Something you were talking about, and I will just kind of play off of that. Broderick Jones, he looks, it's quick. He explodes. Then he flows effortlessly to the next responsibility. He's looking for somebody else to hit and to block. And a lot of times you'll watch like Dan Moore on one of the sacks yesterday had the initial block, but then Pickett got flushed to that side a little bit from some pressure up the middle against Cole, and Moore could not reset and explode back and pick that block up back up. And his guy come off and was able to sack Pickett because Moore was like his feet was stuck in the ground. So many linemen do not have that nimbleness, that athleticism, and that explosiveness that Jones has, where he would have easily, exploded back and shielded that guy off, because that's the difference in a first-round pick that you move up to get that should be left tackle, and a guy that you get in the 3rd or 4th round and you develop him into a solid player. The PFF had Jones as the 3rd worst grade for the Steelers on offense. I think it was like a 55. 60 is average in their scoring. And they had him below average. What game are they watching? I mean, the first 2 games he was in the 70s when he played, which has been the 2 best scores for any tackle for the Steelers this year. Now they had him yesterday and they put him at 55. That's why I put no faith in their scoring, because it never passes the eye test hardly.
I agree. He is probably, in my opinion, definitely has the most potential on the offensive line. I'm not going to
Easy.
say that he's, up there or surpassing, Isaac Seumalo yet, or James Daniels as far as, um, how well they do their position. I think that he's going to eventually get there. I'm glad that he's in position now that he can learn from experience,
Mhm.
and this team can grow with him. He made a comment during the week that 160 yards rushing last week wasn't enough. That he came from Georgia where they ran over 200 yards a game, and they ran
Yeah.
205. He called it. The Naj and Jalen Warren, the 1-2 punch there. I know a lot of folks have been saying, Jalen Warren needs to be one, Naj needs to be two. I don't think it matters, right? As long as they're both, being utilized correctly. That 1-2 punch,
Exactly.
I think, is
Exactly.
better than Naj versus Warren. And I think yesterday when they announced the players, George Pickens didn't get announced with the ones, but Najee Harris and Jalen Warren were both
Yep.
announced, from what I
Yep.
understand. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that? Do you think that was a message to George Pickens, or is that something to elevate Jalen Warren?
I think it was a message to a lot of people.
Hmm.
Uh, Pickens needed a message. Jalen Warren talked today about how much it meant to him. We got to remember this is an undrafted afterthought. There
Hmm.
was another running back that they had paid a good bit of signing bonus as an undrafted free agent. They thought he was going to be the guy who would make the roster. Jalen Warren was just another body. And Jalen Warren now is arguably their most efficient and effective offensive player.
Hmm.
Every week he makes plays. Every week that determination and that effort level is unquestionable. He makes third downs out of sheer will, or he gets close to them. The reason he was able to go for it on fourth down yesterday is he did a superhuman effort to get within a yard or two. I mean, he has been such a blessing. I like to call him muscle hamster or mighty mouse. He's got all these nicknames because he's so exciting. But the Steelers really found something yesterday, I think, in that they ran the ball consistently to the right side behind James Daniels and Broderick Jones. They have not had either side of the line that they could consistently do that until late last year when they was able to do it with Daniels and Moore on the left side. Well, at the beginning of the game, they was pounding the Packers on the right side. And I said, well, at least they got one side. Well, then all of a sudden, Samalu and Moore started blowing some big holes on the left side. That bodes well because you know that Mason Cole, who we all like, I really like him, his communication skills and his leadership, but he's kind of the weak link as far as blocking. And so if you can have both sides of the line that can efficiently and effectively run block like they did yesterday, that's going to open up so many things and help minimize uh, Cole's maybe not being, top tier blocking.
Yeah, that was one of the things that is starting to stick out a little bit, especially in the pass protection. Is Mason Cole's? He sticks out. He sticks out that there's a lot of pressure coming up the middle of the defense of
Yep.
the offense, and there's many a times where I'm watching the game and you see Kenny Pickett having pressure, and you're seeing Mason Cole looking back at it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
I don't
Not
like that.
good.
Yeah, it's going to have to, the Steelers obviously are going to have to, ride with Mason Cole for the remainder of the year. I don't think that they're going to bench him for Herbig. I mean, there's a possibility, but I don't think he's playing that bad that they would,
No,
remove.
no. And his communication is very important.
Right.
That is all still very important. But I don't know if there's an injury that we're really not, they haven't fully disclosed. But yeah, but he's struggling with power up the middle this year worse than last year.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just, like I said, it's kind of sticking out a little bit, but with Broderick Jones out there, he kind of not just cleans up that aspect, but because he's able to pull and he's pulling around and he's opening holes up for the running backs and he's helping the center by being able to pull as well. And it's kind of, shielding it a little bit, but during pass protection is where it really shows up, in my opinion. It's going to be something to watch for the rest of the year. You know, Matt Canada, another game on the sideline, another game where the Steelers score an opening drive touchdown. Steelers did well in the first half. You think we don't see Matt Canada in the booth anymore? He's going to stay the rest of the season on the sideline?
I think you'd have to be crazy to let him go back to the booth because, we know what Okorafor supposedly lost his job for. Now, I believe he lost his job because Jones is just a lot better player. And they needed something, as an excuse because coaches don't like to admit they're wrong. Mm-hmm. But imagine if Canada was standing on the sidelines and Okorafor could have talked directly to Canada instead of up in the booth. Yeah. That was against Jacksonville. And again, I agree with him. You're running the same stupid plays that didn't work in the first half. You're losing by 10 at the start of the fourth quarter, and you're running the same plays. Yeah, I mean, Okorafor is not the only person that sees it, but he did speak out about it and say something. And then, when you're playing bad and you got a better player behind you, it don't take a lot to get you replaced. So I think now Canada can get a feel, they listen to the guys, watch them, their body language and their reactions as they come off the field. And these calls, they ain't working, and the players are kind of down. They're not enthusiastic about these play calls. And you can make adjustments. You get a feel of the ebb and the flow. I think that there's only 5 offensive coordinators in the booth now. Mm-hmm. And the NFL Network did a survey and asked them, what's the benefit of being down on field level? Well, as you know, I've wrote for 2 weeks. You get to sense a true sense of the game and the ebb and the flow. Every guy agreed with me. It's impossible to have that connection setting up in that booth.
I agree. And the other thing is, too, he's able to talk to other positions outside of the quarterback, and the quarterback can actually talk back to him unless he goes and picks up a phone or whatnot. Usually, in between plays or whatnot, he can hear the offensive coordinator, but he can't talk back. And, now if there's like a, maybe an injury or something where the stop is minimal and it's brief, he can run over to the sideline, tell him what he's thinking or what he's seeing, and they can have that conversation versus him up there. So, I completely agree. I think he's found his spot on the team is to be on the sideline, calling the plays from there and making sure that he's available to the players so that he can get that feedback back and forth. There was a little bit of controversy in this game. The backwards pass / lateral. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's something to that? You think it went backwards?
Oh, it went backwards.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, when it happened, I was like, "Oh crap, that's a backward lateral." And I knew that they blew the whistle, so I'm like, they can't give him the Green Bay guy where he picked the ball up and dove in. They can't give him that. But where he picked the ball up, that'll be where they get the ball. Mm-hmm. And the announce on TV, the announcer was like, "Yeah, I mean that was a backward lateral." And then when they come back and said it wasn't, I was like, "Oh man, the Steelers got lucky there." Again, a lot of times, if it's even close, the refs don't want to admit they're wrong either. But for anybody with eyes, you can see that was a backward lateral.
Yeah, there's the theory that's going on out there that this is the same referee, Scott something, and that called Joe Hayden offsides in Green Bay when he wasn't offsides on the block kick, and he's the same person that said that this was a forward pass, that maybe it's some sort of payback for the bad call a couple years ago.
I don't believe that. He's just an imp. He's just an imp.
That could be it too. But speaking about Kenny Pickett, he didn't wow the stat sheet. Yeah, I did see that he was under pressure a handful of times. I did think that maybe perhaps he was locking in on some receivers a little bit too much. Overall, though, I don't think he was the game plan. I think that it was the running aspect of this game was going to be the game plan in this game. I think that was very obvious from the first, scripted plays that the game was going to be played, won and lost on the ground here. And the Steelers did what they had to do. But there's been a lot of talk about Kenny Pickett and a lot of concern about him. After another game, what are your thoughts? How do you feel on the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, we've talked about it before, so I'm not going to be long-winded or argue. Uh, I see the exact same thing every week because it's the exact same offense.
Mm-hmm.
I hear people say, well, he's slow going through his progressions. He locked onto the first guy. He made up his mind where he's going to go with the ball pre-snap. Well, a lot of quarterbacks do. But a lot of guys, their first read, there's always a primary read, and those guys get wide open. Doesn't happen in this offense. Very seldom. And when you throw in the conservative factor and you throw in that they're not using the middle of the field again at all, it's so bad when they tried to do a rub route to end the game. It was actually a good idea. But CA3 he's not used to doing it, and he just ran right into the guy. He didn't even try to make it look like, that he was an accidental or incidental. Again, that goes into coaching. You got to coach these guys up on how to be crafty, just like they're teaching Joey Porter Jr. and hopefully Darius Rush and these guys how to play tight press coverage. There's little tricks to the trade to get away with things. You got a guy like Peterson. You say, they teach these youngins. Well, you got to teach these things. Well, they never even go to the middle of the field. And when they do, they screw it up. I remember last year, two of our receivers ran into each other. So it's just, when you don't do something and then you're going to do it, yeah, it's going to work. It's going to surprise the defense, but it's also kind of a surprise to you because you don't do it. I'm really focusing on the encouraging aspects of yesterday's offense. They scored on 3 of the first 4 possessions. The one they didn't score on was a very telegraphed running play to Harris. That's the thing. They kept running to Harris on first down, even though Warren was having a very effective first half. Yeah. And I was very frustrated with that they didn't alternate more because Harris was not getting a lot on a lot of the first down runs. And then the second play of that drive that didn't work was the backward lateral. And then it was just downhill from there. And they had a rhythm up to that point. And then it just they flatlined the rest of the game. We started seeing those familiar 3 and outs. And I mean, honestly, what I've seen watching is there was not a lot of, okay, well, this option was open and this one wasn't. He didn't have to pass a lot. And when he did not have a lot of open options. Now, had he hit that big pass to Johnson where there was a defensive holding where the guy grabbed Johnson's jersey and didn't let him get the touchdown in the first quarter. Had he have caught that, numbers would have looked better. But, he did draw a pass interference. Yeah. Had Johnson caught the ball that hit him in both hands when he had the one-on-one coverage down the left side, the numbers would have looked a lot better. That didn't happen. But the main thing is the offense was effective more so than they have been. It's always been late in the game. This time they started it earlier in the game, which now they got to get in the middle too. But at least we're seeing some progress, and the progress will come as that offensive line improves, like we've talked about all year. Everything else will improve. And then we'll have more of an idea of what progress is actually being made, especially by Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. For the most part, like one, I have no idea if any receivers were open or not open. We haven't seen the all 22 from the game footage. It didn't appear that he was. I've seen worse games from him. I'll put it that way. I'm not going to say that his game in this game here was one of his best games or any of that, but I don't think he was utilized in that manner. I think the priority of this game was the running game, and that the Steelers were going to take over this game and control the clock. I mean, they only had one full possession in the first quarter that ended up in a touchdown. The second possession in the first quarter, spilled over to the second quarter, and that one ended up also in a touchdown. And so when you're playing that style of offense where you're going to be running the ball out and taking the air out of the ball, so to speak, and just running time down, that's going to give for less opportunities for those bigger stats. Um, the concern, I guess, the only concern that I really saw was there's a couple times, or more often than not, and I think this is what's getting picked up by a lot of the defenses, is that Kenny likes to roll out to his left. Whenever he gets in any type of trouble or any of those type of things, he's rolling out to his left. And defenses are seeing that, and that's what we saw last week and this week is when he rolled out to the left. There was a couple people waiting there for him. And both occasions, he was able to do some magic and get out of there. And this week, he ended up running, I think, for a few yards. I thought that he's using his legs a little bit better in these last couple of weeks, actually pushing the ball down the field with his legs, running. I think that's been improved a little bit as well. He's dealing with the rib injury, so I know they're going to try to limit, him running with the ball. They don't want him to get hit. But, once he's healthy, I don't mind seeing that aspect of his game. But I don't know if this was a fair game to judge, whether or not he was on or off solely based on the limited amount of reps that he had. I know he had 23 attempts, but during some of those, it was high pressure coming up the middle, things like that. I will say I was disappointed in the outcome. I thought that with a secondary like the Packers had, with the injuries that they had, that this would have been more of a breakout game. But I don't think the game plan was to attack the secondary in that manner, which is a little bit confusing because the Packers were just coming off of a big run defensive game. And, well, it doesn't matter. The Steelers went up there and ran it down their throat. But, what do you think about that the Steelers were going up against and attacking the strength of the defense while allowing the weakness, or just kind of overlooking the weaknesses of the defense, having 3 defensive backs out for the Green Bay Packers?
And well, you just said it all right there. That describes the ineptitude of Matt Canada and the Steelers in general on both sides of the ball. Because I'm not giving Terrell Austin a pass either. The Steelers are notorious for playing their game with their style, sticking with their game plan, and they don't play situational football. Everybody else, if a team's got both starting cornerbacks out, they're going to attack that weakness. They're going to attack that and make them prove they can stop it. Steelers don't do that. If the offense, has a backup quarterback in there and all, they still play soft zone and don't want to give up the big play and let that guy pick them apart and find the rhythm by completing all these wide open passes. Where if you jump on a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, early, he never develops a rhythm. The Steelers do a poor job of playing situational football on both sides of the ball. So when people say, this guy's injured or that guy's injured, and I'm like, it really ain't going to matter because the Steelers don't take advantage of it. Yesterday, like when they played the Texans offensive line was almost all backups. And the Steelers got no push. They got no pressure on Stroud. It was crazy. It was like they come in overconfident. They wasn't prepared, and they got smacked in the face. Well, yesterday, the Packers were missing some key components, and it didn't matter. I mean, the one thing I thought, as you said, the Packers have a really good run defense, and the Steelers ran it right down their throat. Thankfully, they were able to do that because they could not take advantage of the injuries in the secondary at all.
Yeah, that was one of the things, like I said, that was just...
Again, I think it's a lot of the problems is subpar. I think a lot of the problems is subpar coaching, and I'm looking forward to seeing that improve in the future.
I agree. It is a concern because that seems to be the common issue. Is sometimes the Steelers are attacking the strength of a team and letting them get away with their weaknesses. That has been something that's been on the offense, on the defense, and we'll talk more about the defense when we get right back. We're going to take a quick break on the YouTube side. Don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. But on the audio only side, we'll see you guys after a few seconds or a few words from our sponsors. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hangover. It's myself, Daniel, and Shannon Wyatt. We're talking about the Steelers' victory over the Green Bay Packers, 23-19, in another game that went all the way down to the final second. But before we get back into it, Shannon, you have a stock up, stock down report coming out this week. When can we expect it, and can you give us a little preview of that?
Should post around 11 tomorrow on the Steel Curtain Network. Last week I had no stock trending downs. And because I thought after the tough loss to the Jaguars, we needed some positivity. And I think everybody's in a better place now. So there is a couple of stock downs in the article that everybody needs to check out. It's not overwhelming. This is not stuff that can't be taken care of and rectified. The Steelers are going to have to get a little creative. The injury to Quan Alexander can be crushing, especially if the Steelers don't get creative in addressing this shortcoming. It seems like it always happens after the trade deadline when you hopefully can make an immediate move to rectify or to assist in the situation. So the Steelers' personnel usage has been a big issue this season. As we've talked about, guys like Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, they should have been playing more long ago. I mean, it was obvious, whether it's just stubbornness on the coaching staff's behalf, wanting the guys to earn it, wanting Porter to show he's willing to tackle, which he did make a really good tackle yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting, to make a guy beat out a veteran, not just hand him a position. But it's just they've been slow reacting. And even more so, the personnel usage issue of not playing your depth guys until there's a major injury, and then you're forced to throw them in there. Like I've been saying all year, Mark Robertson should have been part of the rotation. He could fill in and emulate a Landon Roberts. They're basically the same player. They're very similar. Robertson is more athletic, but he's younger, so he also struggles in coverage, just like Roberts does. He could have been in there next to Holcomb or Alexander, handful of plays each game. Getting familiar, getting to where he recognizes things instinctually and attacking the line of scrimmage. When he had to play yesterday, when Alexander went out, I watched Robertson and he was hesitant. And he didn't attack the line of scrimmage like he was in the preseason, and he was last year. And because Landon Roberts is not a natural green dot guy, he's not usually the guy calling out the defenses and getting everybody lined up. Robertson was kind of out there on his own, and he was trying not to make the big mistake instead of playing instinctually and aggressively like he normally does. I wish they would have used him earlier in the year and got him regular reps, and then he would be prepared for this. Now he's not. Now you have a guy, like they didn't use Darius Rush. He was inactive yesterday after he got about 30 snaps against the Titans and played well. So they said he's not ready for our sub packages. He's not familiar with them. Well, you're never going to be familiar with him until you get experience. All I want them to do with Darius Rush is let him press. Put him on a guy and say, that's your guy, press coverage. That's the most instinctual position in the NFL. Behind running back, the next most instinctual position is press cover corner. That's your guy, sick him. And Rush should have been playing with Riley. But instead, Riley took those snaps that Rush got against the Titans. And Riley played really well. Again, 2 times he's got a chance this year, and he shows excellent closing speed, which is something this defense needs.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a situation that you've got a Landon Roberts, Keanu Neal, Levi Wallace, who are all very poor in coverage. Wallace was targeted on both those touchdowns yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather see a guy like Darius Rush matched up, and maybe he gets a penalty, But I don't believe he lets that guy break wide open on that long touchdown. I mean, he's faster, he's taller, he's stronger. He needed to be out there. So if the Steelers are going to survive this rash of injuries, especially at the inside linebacker position, they're going to have to, one, get Mika Fitzpatrick back, which hopefully is really close to happening. Mm-hmm. But two, they're going to have to be more creative and more willing to use all of the talent at their disposal.
Yeah, and it's not going to be any easier with, like you mentioned, Quan Alexander out. The middle linebacker position now a question mark as far as how they're going to go forward. Because, if I was an offense that isn't Matt Canada ran, I would attack the weakness of the defense, which would be, the middle of the field and, tight ends to the middle of the field, forcing the Mark Robinson and the Landon Roberts cover a tight end or a running back in open space. That's what I would do. And I think that's what we're probably going to see this upcoming week against the Browns. But with Quan Alexander out, what options do you think that the Steelers have at the middle linebacker position? I know that they elevated a guy who was a safety, converted middle linebacker. They have a couple of other guys on the practice squad, but it's slim pickings out there. I know that Miles Jack is a name that's been floating around.
He's an electrician.
Yeah. So what do you think the Steelers go from here with that position as far as getting a coverage guy?
Well, I've read an article today. They were talking about Rashad Evans, who the Steelers and Tomlin really liked when he came out of Alabama. He is fast. He's athletic. He is better in pass coverage than he is as a run defender. He's out there as a free agent. There's a guy like Nick Kwiatkowski, as you had talked about recently, that's out there on a practice squad. That's somebody else that they could look at and try to poach a guy, because at this point, Mika Fitzpatrick will help with a lot of this middle of the field coverage issues, because he's been having to this year. Because as I said, Neal and some of the guys are not good coverage guys. So Fitzpatrick's having to sacrifice his ball hawking ability to be leading the team in tackles. Him and Holcomb was about tied. So getting Fitzpatrick back will help, but there's no way the Steelers are going to be able to recoup what they lost with Holcomb and Alexander. But they need to find a couple of answers behind Roberts and Robertson, especially for coverage, because Roberts and Robertson are very similar. So they need to get some athleticism and speed. And Kwiatkowski's not that fast, but he is very instinctual and smart. And his coverage is much better than the guys they have right now. So I expect them to make a move or two this week. But they might get creative. The kid Walker, they just signed to the practice squad from Atlanta Falcons. He had started 20 games in the last couple of seasons. So that is his forte, is his athleticism and his mobility. I'm not that familiar with him. I don't know how good he is in coverage, but at least he could give them something they might be missing. But without the trade, past the trade deadline, now you're kind of limited. I talked last week in the article, me and you might have talked about it. Nick Herbig, when we come out of college, I thought he was going to be an off-ball linebacker. And he's the kind of guy that I think could give them maybe 8 to 10 snaps a game in that rotation and really play well, because we know how good he is against the run. He's an excellent tackler, and I think he's got the athleticism to not be a slouch in coverage.
Yeah, no, I agree. Finding a coverage linebacker in the middle there is going to be key. Like I said, offenses are going to target that. They're going to put linebacker, they're going to put tight ends, they're going to put running backs there, they're going to put them in space, and they're going to run that. They're going to run up the middle at them. It's going to be really important for this defensive line to stand up, which well, this week against the Packers, they were so and so. I thought that Keanu Benton had a very good game, for the Steelers front line. I thought that TJ Watt, he had a sack and he had some pressures, but I don't feel like he was the same TJ Watt that he kind of took another step back, in my opinion, as far as, it appeared that he was playing hurt. And then last week he comes out, has a pretty good game. And then this week, um, just kind of, he got a sack, but the pressures weren't there. Um, Highsmith, he did all right, but Cam Hayward, he's been a guy that got a lot of discussion about his play and his age and the injury. Is he still affected? And I didn't really get that. I saw him getting double teamed quite a bit. I saw him, maybe not getting pressure on the quarterback as like he would, but he's not getting pushed back. He's not losing in runs. What was your opinion of Cam Hayward back in action this week?
Well, I was thrilled to have Hayward back against the Titans, just for what he can offer as the run defense in the interior. I kind of figured that groin injury was going to really hinder his explosiveness. Hayward has never been a quick twitch athlete. He's got his pressures and his sacks through sheer strength and just driving guys, carrying guys back to the quarterback. And if you have a groin injury, especially one severe enough to have the surgery like he did, you can tell he's a little tentative. He's not pushing off the same. He's anchoring well, and he's playing good run defense, but he's not pushing the pocket. Actually, I thought Keanu Benton played excellent game yesterday. Watching him, he's got such violent hands, and he throws guys around. I mean, he don't just move. He looks like young Hayward, and that he literally tosses guys out of the way and just moves through them, just swims through them, getting back to the quarterback. He's got star potential, and he could very well be the next Cam Hayward for the Steelers. I've said in recent years that I think for Hayward, he's going to have to take a salary reduction. They're going to have to adjust his contract, and he's going to have to move to the interior, maybe nose tackle, similar to how Tyson Alulu lengthened his career at the end. Because Hayward is not offering much of anything right now as a pass rusher. And if Hayward could drop in and take care of that nose tackle and let Benton take his position, I think the Steelers would actually be better off. But again, it's hard to ask a veteran who's meant so much to your franchise to – people look at things as a demotion. But it's not a demotion if you're helping the whole team. It actually helps you earn the salary you're making when you're making the kind of money he is. But I do not see him being effective anymore at that end position.
Yeah, that is true. I will say that the pressure aspect of Cam Hayward's game didn't show up. I'm hoping maybe with more time and more weeks away from the groin injury and the surgery that maybe he can get some of that back. But you're right. When it comes to a severe injury or a surgery like that, everybody's different and everybody reacts differently. I had like an Achilles tendon rupture and Aaron Rodgers had one, and I can tell you he's way ahead of where I was. Now I'm not a pro athlete or any of those things, but he's miles away from where I was at that point of where I was injured. So everybody acts differently. And like for me, that was my first major injury. I hadn't never had surgery or any of those type of things. So I was very timid doing some of the things like pushing up, getting up on my toes. So, if there's some sort of psychological aspect to it, I mean, he's going to have to go through that, and that can take some time, but
I think Rodgers had a lot better facilities and rehab than you did.
Oh, that's probably very true. I wasn't at a $1 million facility or had $1 million surgeon to do my surgery, but
Yep.
the those injuries and those type of injuries that require surgery can have a mental aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this week going up against the Browns, I think we're going to see a lot of Keanu Benton out there, maybe a little bit less of Hayward in passing situations, but I think we'll see him more often when it comes to the running game. Like you mentioned, maybe perhaps moving to nose tackle. I have seen him out there in the nose tackle um, more often than I have seen him in years past being placed in the nose tackle position. So you might be onto something about that, especially to expand his career. But he's getting up there. You mentioned that, his contract needs to come down and things like that. Do you think he has another year in him after this?
Oh, especially if he makes the move to nose, yes. Um, they mentioned it last year, and he hates the idea. He does not like playing nose. He does not think he's effective. But that's one of the strongest defensive linemen the Steelers have ever had. Cam Hayward is a brute. And if he wants to anchor against two guys, you'll watch him do it all the time, easily. And he could be a wonderful nose tackle. But again, it's all in how he looks at it. If he looks at it like a demotion, he's not going to fully commit. We know that we're all that way. It's just a natural ego. But I believe if he's going to stay with the Steelers and help them and hopefully have a chance to be a contender, let's say, Super Bowl contender maybe next year, then for him to be worthy of the amount of money that he's wanting to expect, he needs to first adjust the contract and then make the position switch.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I would like to see him. I know that in the offseason, he had mentioned on his podcast that he wanted to play another 4 years. I don't know if 4 years is in the tables, but it's, you never know. And I just, like I said, I'm just glad to see him back out there. He's a grown man out there. And, I know I heard some of the things and the rumblings of him falling off a little bit, but I saw him taking on double teams and getting that respect as well. And
yeah.
I think he's going to be effective. I don't know for how long. Me personally, I think that you're right. If he finds that to be a something disrespectful or whatnot, then maybe perhaps he doesn't want to go that route. But I mean, he's got an opportunity to play another year with his brother. Play for the team the Steelers that appears that he loves the team. So, and the city and the whole 9 yards. So. I think he could end up being a guy that stays out there. But they released Brendan Fiocco. Is that a sign to you that that's going to be Cam Hayward's possible position as well? Because, I mean, I know Fiocco hasn't gotten much time, but that's what he is, right? He's a nose tackle.
Yeah, you told me that right before we went on air.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? I mean, I was really shocked. I've been shocked that they haven't given him more time, any time, since they signed him in the offseason, because he is a true old school nose tackle. And that he ties up blockers and he lets the inside linebackers, the edge guys, everybody else flow to the ball. He doesn't make tackles and get statistics. He's more of the team first, sacrificial position. And now playing the Browns this week, a team that likes to run heavy, I was really shocked that they released Fiocco now. I don't know what the plan is. Hopefully Montravius Adams is back. Maybe his injury was just a week thing and that he can be back, because they're going to need all hands on deck this week to try to slow down the Browns. Now, one thing I will say, I read that they're doing an MRI tomorrow on Deshaun Watson's ankle that he started limping around on late in the game against the Ravens. If there's any question, he won't play. If he's having aches and pains, as we've seen, he won't play. And they'll lean on the running game even more. So I think the Steelers really, their primary focus needs to be stopping that run and making the Browns beat them through there, regardless if it's Watson or Walker or who it is.
I agree. I've never been afraid of Deshaun Watson's passing
Yeah.
ability. The one year that he had a great year, in my opinion, he was coming back. The team itself was trying to come back from a bunch of um, being down a lot. I think they went like 5-11 or something that year. It was a
Hmm.
super bad team, and that was his best year. Got a lot of stats in those, garbage time type of stuff. So, I've never been impressed with him that much. I think that it's going to be a tough game for the Steelers just kind of because of the injuries. Keanu Neal, apparently he landed on the football. This is what he said. He landed on the football, so they were checking out his ribs, but he didn't return to the game. Uh, are you concerned? I know his pass coverage maybe perhaps isn't there, but he is a guy that can tackle. If he is not a go, Trent Thompson, he was out there. I thought he looked like a little bit of a liability. Darius Rush, apparently, like you mentioned earlier, they were doing some sub package zone type of things that he wasn't caught up to speed yet.
Hmm.
Do you think that's the same game plan going up against the Browns, or do you think that the Steelers are going to maybe do a little bit more man coverage and get Rush back out there? Because honestly, when you look at the secondary, Minka, he's coming back from the hamstring. I don't know where his speed is going to be his first game if he's back this week. There's no guarantee there, but if he is back, is he going to be the fast guy or the speedy guy that he was prior to the injury, or is that going to take a couple of weeks to get back? And outside of him, you have 4-5 and 4-6 secondary. Everybody's slow. Rush is a 4-3 guy. He's the guy that can at least, don't get taken over the top. I
Yeah.
would like to see Rush in there just solely because of that. But that's going to require more of a man defense. We didn't see it that much this week. Is there a reason why you think that the Steelers did that? Do you think it was the matchup against Jordan Love, or was it because of Minka not being out there? I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
I think combination.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they didn't really respect Love's game, in my opinion. That's why they went with all the soft zone. They thought that if you could make him throw it enough, that he'd make a mistake and they could intercept the ball, which at the end he did. And they made two interceptions late. So I guess we could only question that rationale to a point. But um, I would rather see Porter and Rush pressing and then let Wallace and Peterson, especially Peterson, play more to his strength, which he could cover the slot some, cover a tight end, which, the Browns like to use their tight end a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, don't give them the easy completions, the soft zone, that vanilla stuff is it just it allows teams to get in favorable down the distances. They don't always get the 10 yards, but they get an easy 6 or 7 quick. And
Yeah.
hopefully that, as you say, we'll see a difference there. Rush has the speed to match up. He's also tall and long, can tackle. They were using him in some safety concepts against the Titans. Just using that speed to play, the deep safety and kind of do a little bit of copycat of Fitzpatrick. And hopefully Fitzpatrick is back. Because if
Mm-hmm.
he is, then I feel much better about the run defense, even without Holcomb and Alexander. Because, like I said, man, I'm really that's my biggest concern on defense moving forward right now is how they are going to adequately replace those two guys. That's devastating in back to back weeks.
Yeah, that definitely is. I mean, it is. Talk about back to square one when it comes to this middle
Yeah.
linebacker group. It is what it is. The Steelers are just going to have to move forward with it. But a guy that played well on the defense this past week kind of changed the game in two different ways. For the secondary was Patrick Peterson. I thought he had a very excellent game. He was
Yep.
responsible for the tip that ended up being an interception by Keanu Neal, and he was also responsible for the block that forced the Green Bay Packers to have to put the ball in
Mm-hmm.
the end zone at the end of the game. I thought he did a great job in this game. I thought his coverage was a lot better in this game. Uh, I think that one of the things, though, that has come up a lot when it comes to some of these interviews in the locker room with these defensive backs is the fact that the issue has been communication.
Yep.
There's been a lot of problems with communication. And I think that Minka Fitzpatrick coming back alleviates a lot of those miscommunication issues. I hope he's back as well. I think that's going to be huge for this team. But if not, I think maybe Patrick Pete is a guy that can kind of take over. Um, but just to go back real quick to the middle linebacker group, Landon Roberts, he's the guy with the green dot, no question, no doubts. He's going to be on the field every single play, right?
Yeah, he's going to have to. He's not done it before, really. I think the last time might have been with the Patriots. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
I wrote an article that Cole Holcomb wasn't scared of the little green dot. A lot of guys, they are paralyzed. The paralysis of overanalysis. When they have to think too much, they don't play instinctual and they hesitate.
Mm-hmm.
We see it with cornerbacks. You remember Artie Burns. When Artie Burns got trapped in his own mind, he was done. And you see that. I don't think that's going to happen with Roberts. He's a vested veteran. But I watched his communications was not the same as Holcomb. Neither was Alexander, but because Holcomb was really good at communicating with everybody. And as you said, Kazee mentioned after the game yesterday that they really miss there's communication issues and they really miss Fitzpatrick. So yeah, that's going to have to tighten up as they move into especially these divisional games.
Yeah, these divisional games are going to be huge.
Yeah.
The Steelers got 2 back-to-back in Ohio, one against Cleveland this upcoming Sunday, and then the next week is against the Cincinnati Bengals. And these are going to be tough games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially coming off with the injuries that they have on the defensive side. I think more is going to be asked of the offensive side. I anticipate to see more of the running game and efforts to minimize the opportunities for the opposing offenses. Similar to like this game, I think that's going to be the game plan. I think that's the identity of this team. Mm-hmm. And as long as the running game is doing what they're doing, now I'm not sure 200 yards a game is something that you can expect, but if they're being able to get 150 to 160 yards a game consistently, I think this is an offense that can work and be good enough for this team to actually make some sort of run. When you look at the teams in the AFC, outside of maybe the Chiefs, I don't think that there's a team that's not beatable, and I think that the Steelers, if they find themselves playing, I don't know, the Miami, Jacksonville, and the Ravens, I think that those are all three teams in the playoffs that the Steelers can go into and they can win those games, in my opinion. And so, don't give up on the season is basically what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of folks that are upset and they're they don't like where the offense is at. The stats they're not what we want. And to be honest, they're not. But at the end of the day, there's not a juggernaut team right now that's just blowing people away. And I think that there's the opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to still make some noise.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to get healthy. Do you got any final words for everybody before we let everyone out?
Well, I like what you said. That's so true. You just don't know. That's why you play the games. That's why you try to hang around and make the playoffs. You want to get better each week. You want to look to the future and say, like I said, is this the answer? Is Kenny Pickett the answer? Is, what guys do we want to bring back next year? Where do we need to add? Every game matters. Whether it's a win or loss, a blowout, there's something to be learned and something to be gained. So if you'd have told me yesterday that the Ravens was going to go up 17-3 and look dominant in doing so, and that they were going to have a complete collapse at home and let the Browns come back and win, I'd have said, no way. So there is no perfect teams. Kansas City has not been the same offense this year that they've been in the past. They have Mahomes and Kelsey, but they don't have a lot else. And they're getting by a lot on the greatness of those and Andy Reid as the offense and the head coach. So, the Steelers have, let's see, um, 8 games left to really continue to build and improve, and they can be a lot better at the end of the season than they are right now. And they need some good health. They need to
Yeah.
quit losing starters for the season. Uh, you know, I would feel a lot better about the situation if that hadn't happened. But yeah, I'm encouraged. I'm seeing some progress. To see a first quarter where the Steelers actually looked efficient on offense. Hey, we're not talking enough about that.
Yeah.
That was important. The improvement of the offensive line, the running lanes, that running lane that Najee Harris ran through for the touchdown. I don't think he had a running lane that big in his career, NFL career thus far. I mean, he could have walked in, and he basically did. That is progress, folks. So let's just stay positive and focus on the little things they can change and improve, and hopefully we'll keep going in the right direction.
I agree 100%. I think that this team is moving in the right direction. It's going a little bit slow, and I think that I'll be honest. I think that the practice schedule for the NFL probably has a little bit to do with that. When you're not allowed to hit throughout the week and things like that, that can affect timing on the offensive side. And I think that's might be a reasoning why we're not seeing offenses dominate like they used to, or at least this year. But hey, that works for the Steelers' favor, especially now if they got the running game going and they're able to control the ball and move the ball down the field. I'm excited. I think that there obviously there's some deficiencies, but I don't think that they're deficiencies that are going to completely take this game out of competition. So I still got some faith. I still think that they're they're more than capable of winning. Definitely getting in double digit wins, and especially with the remaining schedule. The strength of the schedule, I think they can get in double digit wins, and I think this is going to be a team that's going to be in the playoffs once it's all said and done. And for that, we should not be down for that. We shouldn't be negative or upset. That's a positive thing, and hopefully, maybe the Steelers can do something that they haven't done in a while. If they do get there, and let's win a game. So only time will tell. First things first is getting healthy and then playing the next game. But with that being said, we're out of here. Shannon, send us out.